when you're single and you have no other priorities besides trying to be as successful as I could be, I didn't have kids or a wife or like that. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because I don't have, all I cared about was how much more successful can we make this? And then things change and, your thoughts and your priorities and everything change. But
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Real Estate Show. I'm Tiffany Weber, a real estate attorney in Mooresville, North Carolina, with another office in Huntersville, North Carolina. We're called Thomas & Weber. And today, I am so excited about our guest, Brett Carraway. Welcome to the show.
thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Like, this feels like like when talk shows have like they land these huge interviews and they're like, this is our biggest guest to date. I feel a little bit like that. I'm like, I cannot believe.
I don't let you down here.
No, you're not. You're not. So I think you've had some friends that have come on the show recently, so they probably, and you maybe seen some of the clips. So I think a little bit of what I'm going to ask you about. But I always like to ask with agents that are like really crushing it and kind of leading the way in the industry, I love to hear how you got to this place. Because you could be doing anything and you chose this. So if you'll tell us.
So it started when I was in college. I went to college, got a degree in economics, had no clue what I wanted to do. It was an easy degree for me to get. I went to real estate school right out of college because I didn't know.
Yeah.
Stopped 2 weeks before I took the state test and got an opportunity to own another business.
Oh,
so I
wow.
left it, just put it on the back burner, built this other business, stayed in that business from then until my son was born. And when my son was born, it was what's next.
Yeah.
Other business I'd had good success in, but when it came to priorities and time and what I can allocate my time to be a father, that wasn't the business for me.
Yeah.
I was gone a lot. It was late nights and whatnot. So then it was, all right, what's going to be next? I got to figure this out because I've got to put being a father and a husband before the fun and the success of this other business. And so it was, real estate had always been there. It'd been something I'd had a passion about. I'd always followed, I'd liked. So it was, let's go back and get my real estate license. So at that point, I went to real estate school, got my real estate license.
Didn't stop before the exam this time?
I did not. Took the class, I had a reason that I had to get it done because I wanted to find that next step that would allow me the time to be with my family, something that I felt I could have success in. I'd built a big enough network in a prior business that I felt like I could parlay all those connections into real estate.
Yeah.
And it gave me the opportunity to have that time. So I did that, got my license, and then kind of stayed with that other business for a little bit while I was making the transition. And then when my daughter was being born, it was like, okay, now it's time to fully commit. I stepped away from a bunch of the other business during the time prior, but I hadn't fully stepped away. So at that point, it was, all right, let's step away. Let's go all in on real estate. Let's take all the connections in the prior, work that I had done and put it to this business that one, I felt like I could be successful in. I had spent a couple years doing both, learning the business, making the transition to where people knew that I was in the business so that, even though people knew me, they also have to know that you can do the business. This is the big transactions and big things in people's life when they're doing a real estate deal. And, people had the belief that I was the right person at that point and I'd had some success. So then it was, all right, let's step away, go all in on real estate, which I did in 2019. So I got my license in 2016, kind of did both, stepping away. And in 2019, I was all in on real estate.
Little Kobe Bryant bet on yourself action there.
It did. And, it was a business, like I said, luckily I had a couple years doing both. But it was, look, I can figure out if business is up and down, I can make changes. The financial side of things, if there's down years or up years, like I can make those changes. But being a father for a couple years then, getting married, my daughter about to be born, I could not figure out the time management part of it. Like I would give up things to be able to manage my time better, which in the other business I didn't have, I couldn't do that. I was gone during the day, I was home for a couple hours, and I was gone all night, rinse and repeat all the time. You know, in real estate, even though when you're busy, I can still manage my time how I need to around certain things.
And if you want to, you can say no to clients. You don't have to take every client.
And that is one thing that I live by. If my client doesn't understand that my family comes first, you're not my client. You know, is what it is. I don't care how big it is.
Yeah.
You know, that's something that over the past 5 years, family's first.
Yeah.
Family was, unfortunately to say, I didn't put first for a long time. It was work, success, and everything else that came with that. That my priorities weren't in order. It was all about success meant more to me than other things that should have been. You know, and when I made that change, I was like, I'll never do that again.
Yeah.
My priorities are going to be in order, and we're going to keep them in order for how they need to be. It's going to be family first, and then everything else can come after that.
Yeah.
You know, this business has now allowed me that opportunity to, one, luckily, I've been blessed with a lot of people to call clients and to friends and to new friends to gain, but it's also given me that opportunity to be present with my kids, my wife, school events. I try to pick my son up. If I don't have a meeting at 2:00 and I'm around Belmont, I pick my son up every day I can.
That's awesome.
I take him to school every single morning because he goes at 7 before I start my day. Now, these are things that, you know, in a different business might not allow me that.
Yeah.
When my son has a field day at school, which he has this Friday, my time from 12 to 2 on Friday is blocked and nothing will take up for it. I was supposed to have a closing at 1. We moved to closing at 9 a.m. I'll be at his field day Friday.
Yeah.
You know, those things are take priority in this now.
Yeah, there are a couple things that you said that really stood out to me. And when you started talking about having a child and how it changed how you thought about, I really identify with the chasing success and putting that first. You know, my daughter's going to be, at the time we're recording this, she's going to be 2 in 2 days. And prior to, you know, her being born, it had been, you know, 12 years of trying to chase the next tier, you know, get the next rung up on the ladder. And when I got into law and when I started with this firm and with my partner before he passed away, like you know, we'd be here till 7, then we'd go to dinner with our spouses and talk about work more. We'd get home at 9. I'd be back at the office the next morning at 9, same thing, you know. But once I got that positive test, I was like, this is all, you know, like this is all about to change. And when she got here, it's like my brain chemistry changed. I'm like, no, we're not being at the office all night. She's only little for so long. I will not get this opportunity again. So we got to change some things up. And, you know, at that time I'd been the only attorney. Once my law partner passed, I'm like, we got to get some other attorneys in here. So I totally understand. And just to hear you say it so plainly of, I was chasing success, and during that time, it's sometimes incompatible with putting your family first. And it became clear to me that I was not going to compromise, and it was going to be family first no matter what. Like, it's one, I love you being candid and just saying that, because a lot of people would not admit that. But two, the fact that you actually made the change and you walk the talk. I mean, that's amazing. Now, I'm curious, you talked about your other business. Is it something you can talk? Can you tell us what it was?
Sure.
Okay.
So when I was in college, 19 years old, I thought I was going to be this Major League Baseball star. You know, that was how everything had been prepped forever. Got hurt, and that died. I didn't have a plan B.
Yeah.
I was 19 years old. I was at East Carolina University. You know, great school. But still, what else was I going to do besides school? I was not the best, you know, when it came to being studious. I was smart, but I wasn't really,
Like,
you know.
not motivated by
exactly.
academics.
You know, if they had attendance in the class, I didn't really. I was like, oh, let me switch. I could pass the test. I could get my degree. But it was like, what else do I do? You know, and I got asked if I wanted to work at this nightclub. And Greenville's a big...
There's a little bit of a reputation there.
There is. And, you know, I was like, all right, I'm not doing anything else. I didn't have another job at the time. I was like, look, if I'm not playing baseball and I don't go to, you know, I don't have that many hours of class, it doesn't take me a lot to study, then I got to do something. I just want to sit around my place and do nothing. So I was like, sure, I'll do it. You know, enjoyed the business. learned the business from some really good people. When I graduated, I told you I was in real estate school. 2 weeks before, I got approached from a commercial real estate owner in Greenville who knew that I was running the clubs there. Family friend, and he was like, look, I've got this club that is coming up for renewal. The owner is not going to renew the lease. He's moving away. I already own the building. You know the business. Instead of me just getting rent, why don't we partner for the business and we'll build out this new nightclub?
Yeah.
I'll give you 60% of the business and I'll make you pay zero. I'll put up 100% of the money and you get 60% of the business.
You know what you do with that? You don't take your exam and you go do that.
At 23 years old. Okay. So I took that opportunity. All right. The business mind, as I tell people, hadn't really kicked in yet at 23 and ECU.
What is that? Our frontal lobes are still developing at that point.
Yeah. But it allowed me to own my first business at 23. It allowed me to continue learning the business side of things and the other parts. Did it go as well as it could? It did well. It could have done a lot better, but I learned a lot with that. The next year, I ended up, I was like, all right, Greenville's been great. I'm from Greenville. I went to college there. I had a lot of friends move to Charlotte. I was ready for a next change. So I moved to Charlotte, got a job with a contractor here, and then ended up meeting the guys that ran a bunch of the clubs in here in Charlotte, ended up partnering with them. This was about the time the Epicenter was opening.
Yes.
So
good time to be in the nightclub business.
it was. So we ended up building out some clubs here in Charlotte, and they were very successful for a while. And, we ran those we opened them in 2008 when the Epicenter opened. And until, 2020 is when they ultimately, most of them had to close because of COVID.
Yeah.
But I had stepped away from the business just before that. Again, it's a business that I knew. It was a great business to be in, being single. I didn't have to allocate my time to anybody but myself or business. I was making contacts left and right because we had some of the biggest clubs here. So when people wanted to go out, I was the face of the business.
The guy.
I was the one they called, whether you're bankers uptown, business people, athletes, whoever it was. So they called me. And they called me for all those years, and I was their go-to to get them in, to get them tickets, to get them tables, skip the line, whatever it may be.
I got a guy is you.
I got you.
Yeah.
And I had built all those relationships for that long. So when I stepped away, all those relationships I had. Again, it was a great business, very successful. We had an amazing team that we assembled to do this. But it was 10 a.m. to 5 a.m. in meetings about events, promoters, whether I was meeting with record labels, artist management, whatever it may be. I would go home, shower, eat dinner, and then I was back at 8 p.m., whether it was at a Hornets game, a dinner, seeing people somewhere else. We opened about 9:30 everywhere. We closed at 2, close up, whatever else. I get home 3, 4 a.m. every day. When you're single and you have no other priorities besides trying to be as successful as I could be, I didn't have kids or a wife or like that. It doesn't matter. Because I don't have, all I cared about was how much more successful can we make this? And then things change and, your thoughts and your priorities and everything change. But
yeah, there's, you strike me as somebody that is like extremely humble because there's a couple things that you said in there that you're saying, like my business did well, but I think it could have done better. And I think that also shows like as we age and the maturity comes, like you can be proud of what you did, but also see your opportunities and you kind of look back on yourself with grace of like, I was still learning and I learned so much that I can now turn to this. But you also are very quick to point out the success of your team and how hard they worked. And I think that's kind of like the mark of someone that's like a good leader and just has maturity in business. So you were able to take everything that you learned. And I think the hospitality that you have to display of being the person, you are the guy. You know how to get everybody where they need to go. You run the show. You're who everybody wants to talk to. You have to be extremely hospitable. You have to know how to talk to everybody, no matter what their personality is, whether they seem like, like the celebrity of it all probably got completely lost on you. Like too many celebrities to count. I'm going to just treat everybody with kindness. And then you come into an industry like real estate where if you have mastered those skills, that's half the battle. Now you just have to learn the textbooks, right?
It is. And I think one thing with like the humbleness, maturity, as I've aged and as my life has changed, that's become more. I was, in my 20s running the nightclubs, thinking you're the cool guy and all that. Life's a little different then, and I think how you look at life and how you act and things like that. But as you grow older and children come into the picture, you get married, you look at life completely different.
Yeah.
I tell you, like, the person I am now and 15 years ago are completely different.
Yeah.
Thank God.
I feel the same way. Like, I don't know that I would be, I'm not trying to be like down on myself, but I don't know that I'd be friends with myself 15 years ago. And I'm very grateful for the changes that have come during that time.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And you're talking about like what you have to learn in that business. Example, I had someone call me who was a bartender, and they were like, we're filling out an application, my resume, and I'm getting mixed responses on whether I should put that I was a bartender on the bottom on part of my application. And I'm like, well, it depends. I think if, what job are you going for? If someone comes to me, let's just take this in real estate, and you worked in the service industry, you were a bartender, a server, whatever it may be, I love it. And here's the reason, like you say, is that I know if you're in that business, we deal with different emotions every night, every 30 seconds it could change. You
with
could
the
have,
same person even.
Yes. You could have a bachelorette come up that's great and having a great time celebrating, they're happy. And then the next person you go is going through a breakup and they're out and they're not. The next person could be mean when they're out. You go through stages of every person you deal with acts different.
Yeah.
And if you can go and still work with every single one of them and control how you are in dealing with them, then I think, especially in real estate, because every buyer and every seller is different.
Yeah.
You've got some that are really emotional. You got some that are very happy and they look at you as the professional, and you got some of them that, are know-it-alls and whatnot. And you got, that are selling because they're moving to a bigger house.
Yeah.
They may be selling because they're getting divorced. Whatever the reason may be, you have to, as a person, be able to work with those emotions in the same way, no matter what the deal is. And I think from coming from an industry like that, I think that does prepare you for a lot of things you deal with in this industry.
Yeah, we agree with that. We have a similar approach here of, to us, law office, that is a plus. We see that on a resume and we're like, okay, because even among agents, the emotions that you get, how they approach a transaction, sometimes the bulldog that they present to their clients is not just to their clients, it's to everybody, even the people that are on their team trying to help them. So knowing how to navigate that is critical. And someone who's never had a role where you've had to deal with people at their worst or at their most entitled, it's going to be a rude awakening, and not everybody can make it. So I hear you on that. I'm curious. So, and I think I know the answer to this, but like a lot of the people that you worked with in your prior career, probably a lot of those have become clients.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot. I do owe a lot of my success to the network that I built previously. And I fully admit that, and
I don't think that's a negative or even anything you have to like hedge about. That's you worked to build that network, regardless of the like scenario that you did it in. Like those are relationships that you developed.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah. And it's something that, coming in, I already had that relationship, for years. Or, look, it is what it is. Those aren't bad people to vet you to other people.
Yeah.
When if they're getting vetted by some of the clients that I already knew coming in, and they're vetting to their friends, families, or acquaintances, it's not a bad person to have.
Some of the
me.
best referrals you can
Exactly. And so, yes, I do. Over the years, obviously, I've had to build, the business further and further, but a lot of that did come in, from people I knew, and there's good and bad with that.
Yeah.
And there's, I wouldn't say bad from that, but there was a time that I kind of got complacent because I was successful in the business, because people were calling me left and right, and I was having a lot of success in business that I felt that this was, years ago that, that I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to be successful because all these people are going to call me. I don't really have to go out and do all this extra, work and marketing and pushing to get my name out there. And I hit that little lull and then I had to snap out. I was like, hold on, because I'm not one to get complacent.
Yeah.
And I got that way, and I'm like, hold on, this isn't, this is going to run out, buddy. I was like, you're going to hit a time where, it's not always going to be like this. Take care of all these people and continue, but to make this a successful long-term career, because I'm not looking right now, other business involvement maybe is things, but this is the career that I want for a long time. And so I've got to put the work in to gain all the new people outside of those.
Yeah.
Along with what I came with.
That's so critical too, that you recognized ahead of time and enough time before it had hit you. That like, I got to keep doing stuff to fill my pipeline. I cannot only rely on the strength of the previous relationships I've built. I got to go make the new ones. I got to make sure I keep pouring into the people that I know, because then they'll tell their friends and so on and so forth. Because it could be very easy for someone like you who has had extreme success in another area where you've got good contacts, then your contacts have big networks and so on and so forth, to just say, I got it. Like this is all I need. I don't need to do anything else. But the fact that you recognized it early and said, oh no, we're not going to let this dry up. I mean, that's critical.
It came from a podcast.
Really?
I got asked a question on a podcast. What do you do to further your business? And I am someone that I will listen to this over and over again just to see how I answered questions, what could I should have answered different thoughts or whatnot. And I was listening to this podcast over and over, just listening to it and letting it burn in. And they asked me a question. They're like, what do you do to further your business? And my response at that time was really not a whole lot. I just take the relationships I have and make sure I treat them as well as I can and do as good of a job as I can when I represent them, so that they're happy and they go tell people and they go tell people.
Which that's not a bad answer, but
yeah, yes, you got to do that, but then you've got to do other steps too. And when I was listening to that, I would just sit there and skip back and listen to it again and skip back and listen to it again. And it drove me nuts that was my answer at the time.
Yeah. And it wasn't a matter of you misspoke. It's probably your realization of that is what I do. And that might not be enough forever.
Exactly.
Yeah. Gosh, that's so good.
Then I went and hired VA, ISAs, all this stuff. I was like, hold on. I went and sat in my office and I just started making notes. And I was like, what is the plan now? Because this, yes, it's working, but this can't be how we focus. And I just started checking them off. Went and interviewed VAs, hired a VA, went and did this. And I was like, all right, we got to put all this in motion.
I think there's a lot of people that last year, especially starting in 2022, but 2023 especially, that if you had asked them the question that you got during COVID times, they would have said, what do you mean develop my business? All I got to do is, my phone won't stop ringing. I put a sign out in the yard and it never even hits the MLS. It's sold. What do you mean? And late 2022 and then all of last year, they're like, ooh, I was just relying on the interest rates to carry me through. And now what do I do? And they didn't have that epiphany that you had. And now they're putting in the work now, but had they realized that while interest rates were still good and had done those other things, and like invested in themselves and the future of their business, they, might not have been as rough on them.
Yeah, and that's what we have meetings now with. So I have 21 agents at the firm I own, and myself and my broker in charge will sit down with each agent. We do it at the end of the year, and then we try to do it quarterly. And those were conversations that I had last year with them as business declined for pretty much everybody. Like, all right, these are the things that you need to look at too, because everybody that got their license, whether you had it before or whatnot, everybody rode this huge wave during COVID. I mean, it's just how it was. And then when he came out of it, if you weren't prepared or didn't have those clients build or that network build, you're sitting there like, what do I do now? We had agents that we had to sit and talk to them like, all right, well, this is when we have to more than ever put plans in place. How are we going to build your business? Because this is how the business really is. The business isn't 2020 and 2021. That was just,
anomaly. We're thankful for it.
Get over it. Don't expect for it to come back like that. You got to put in a lot of work to have that success. So those are conversations that we had all last year, and we're continuing to have now, following up on things.
I'm curious, was it an easy decision for you to open up your own and, be boss again, essentially?
No, that actually. So when I got my license, I started with Remax. I decided that it was time to make a change from then. My broker in charge at Remax is still my broker in charge today. When I got my license, he's phenomenal. There's no way have the success I have and to feel comfort in the business that I have without him, hands down. He was leaving, and we were essentially looking to open another Remax at a time.
Yeah.
And I'd met with him. Remax wouldn't approve Belmont.
Wow.
They wouldn't really give us the answer at the time. I found out later why somebody just had the territory. I don't think that was a hard reason.
Yeah.
They could have just gave us that reason, but okay. So we ended up opening our own firm, but we opened it with one of his investors. So I had a small part in the business just to kind of be involved and to have a small piece of ownership, but I just did my own thing. Then the majority owner decided he was stepping away from real estate to go into another business. And it was kind of left that, he was like, well, he was the backer of the business at the time. And it was like, well, I'm moving to this other business. I'm going to step away from real estate. So we were just left that, all right, well, the business is going to close, or, what do we do? And at that time we had, I think, 15 agents. 7 or 8 of them had came to the firm just because of me. I couldn't go to those 7 and 8 people and tell them that they believed in me to come to the firm and that now the firm was going to close because the majority owner was moving on to something else, and that they had essentially probably a month to figure out what they were going to do next. So I ended up buying out the firm. Was not something that wasn't on my board for the year that was going to happen. But I felt like I needed to do it to not let people down. Yeah. And it was something I was able to do. And, I never really, that wasn't in the cards that I wanted to be a firm owner. But, it was something that I knew that if Rick, who's my broker in charge, was going to stay involved, we had good agents that I believed in. The business side of thing is just, something that I was used to. If this is something that I want to do long term, why not?
Yeah. Might not have been on your bingo card, but you had all of the skills and the desire. I hear a lot of parallels to my own story in that too, because, when my law partner passed, he was the majority owner. And while long term, the plan was to buy him out over time, then I'd be the sole owner. He could fade away into retirement and just come knock around in the office when he wanted to. When there is a sudden death, that changes things quite quickly. And not a lot of people understand that, like, okay, if in a law firm, the bar has rules around timing of things. And, we were on a tight timeline to try to figure this out. And, I can't say a whole lot about it, but essentially I had that same feeling that you had of, okay, well, I could buy out his interest. We keep the firm running. I could start over. Maybe I go do something else. I don't know. It was a whole new frontier. But I thought about our staff, who I had just had to overnight lead through a major transition. And, he passed away on a Saturday. The next week, we had 50-something closings. We didn't miss any. We didn't reschedule any. Nice. It's like I've got this team that's given it their all through this very dark time. I can't go to them and say, hey, guys, I'm hanging it up. Some of them, thanks for a good 20 years. I'm sure you will land somewhere. I couldn't do that. Yeah. So I totally get it when you say those people bet on me and they followed me here and they believed in me. And how am I going to have that conversation 8 times and tell them best of luck? Yeah. You can't do that.
Because I knew it was going to be me that had to have that conversation, not anyone else. And look, we were able to come to terms on the buyout. There was a little back and forth. It took a while, but it was, we worked it out. Yeah. And now I'm glad. We had, I think it was 14 or 15 at the time. We're at 21 agents now. Look, it's a lot different. I looked at the business then. I was just a minority owner just to have a partnership in the company, just to have something, to be a downtown business owner in Belmont. It's where I live. That's where, I'm rooted in Belmont. I love the town. That was more the reasoning then. Yeah. And this was more
skin in the game.
Yeah. It kind of, it was, and now it was, all right, let's look at this more as just me and my personal deals. How can I take this firm for a long time now? I'm in the middle of Main Street in Belmont. We have a good name there. I know a lot of people. Let's bring these agents. Let's help them improve their business and lifestyle, whatever it may be. Bring in new agents. And like we had a great 2023 was still down production wise, but I feel like it was up in the way the changes we were able to make in the business, what we were able to teach the agents and help them with. And 2024 has taken off like a rocket.
Yeah.
And it's been great. And I'm happy that I did it. Hopefully it works out for a long time.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, then I know I gave it all I can. It's trending up. It looks great. I don't have any plans to change it at all.
And you're doing the things that lay a groundwork for a long, a successful business over time. You take those down years, so to speak, and you use it to pour into your team, to your processes, educate. And then when you have a boom, then your people are ready for it.
Yeah.